I'm going to be upgrading the fuel system on my 1995 Mazda RX-7 that is behind me. And if you're not subscribed, make sure to subscribe. You pretty much see I upgraded the intake manifold and the throttle body. I also am installing this CJ Motorsports fuel system, and I am using their feed and return line, but I'm not using their fuel lines for the actual rail to distribute the fuel to the primary and secondary. I actually made some hard lines, and the reason I did that was so that they matched the re-anodized hats or the spacers for the injectors. I am using for primaries 1050Xs and for secondaries 4 1700Xs. CJ Motorsports fuel rails, primary and secondary, are very well designed and machined. They also come with spacers and bolts. I will try to put as many links in the description as I possibly can remember. It took me a while to pretty much complete this whole kit. CJ Motorsports, Charles sent me this kit. It came in a very timely fashion. That's not what I was waiting for. Pretty much what I was waiting for was all the anodizing, random bolts, and other random odds and ends, and also making these hard lines, which took you know, a little bit of extra time, and you know, the extra effort you can see paid off. Something else that took some time was I designed a bracket for the fuel pressure regulator. It's made out of stainless steel, and it is you know, it bolts directly to the fuel pressure regulator in these, you know, the provided locations, and then it bolts to the Elite manifold. So the Elite manifold, the CJ Motorsports fuel system comes with a bracket that works on the stock FD intake. The Elite manifold does not have the location for that. So you can see on the Elite manifold right here, unlike the FD stock intake, which has a bracket kind of on the side of this runner right here, this one has one directly on the bottom. And also, if you're looking for the bracket that I made out of stainless, I sell them for $75 a piece, and they come with bolts. The reason I use this fuel pressure regulator instead of the -6 injector bypass, this is an A1000 injector bypass, it's just -10. The reason I did that was so I could use -8 lines. This engine has had some work done to it. It does have 3mm apex seals. The only thing it doesn't have is studs, so it has a nice port, and once I delete the cat, it will sound really good with all this intake manifold and actually making around 500 to 600 horsepower. Other thing I didn't like was the vacuum line. So I ran hard lines for the vacuum line, that is -3. I also didn't like the gauge. I have an AM electric gauge. Moving on to the intake manifold, I already have a 90/1/8 NPT fitting. Well, actually I have 2 of them. One thing I do not like about this intake manifold is that these ports are all very close together. The firewall is about that far away. So there's no way to actually run anything straight out, which is an issue if you're gonna run anything with AN fittings. And you know, these aren't spaced out far enough to run 490s on there. Another thing I don't like about this intake manifold is that I'm going to have to Dremel this out. It doesn't work with the factory throttle cable, you know, grommet. There's a rubber grommet and it has like a spacer inside of it. It doesn't fit in there, so I'll have to take the Dremel and kind of grind that down. The issue with that is I've had this intake manifold polished and anodized. It doesn't look polished because the anodizer kind of messed it up. They also messed up some other things. They messed up these pulleys. They were supposed to be the same color as this, which they didn't come out. Moving on, I have a larger throttle body. This is the one from Rotary Works. It's billet. It comes with there's an option to come with a little bracket that goes inside of the TPS sensor. And you know, this is a lot better than running to me, a lot better and more efficient than running the 3 separate throttle bodies that come on the stock throttle body. For the time being, I'm gonna have to run this spacer because I'm running the Greddy elbow for the intake. And once I redo the intercooler and piping, I'll get rid of this and this, and then just have something come directly off the throttle body. For the time being, I need both of these, so I have to run this spacer, because this would actually hit the oil cap if I didn't. Also, something good to note is these didn't come with gaskets, so from Mazda I ordered 2 O-rings for the throttle body and the spacer, and then a gasket for the actual throttle body to the intake manifold. Another thing I did was I ordered these bolts. These are titanium. They're very light. You know, they're not good. They're not a weight reduction thing. It's just that I like them. They're titanium. The cool thing is they use them on BMX, and they're hollow inside, so they are very light. So I got 4 of those to bolt the throttle body to the intake manifold. And coming back around to the titanium hardware, I have titanium hardware on the water pump, which I just replaced. I also have titanium hardware holding the thermostat housing on. There's also titanium hardware holding the intake manifold on. The one thing I'm not going to show is how to install the injectors. The injectors just pretty much go into the hats or the spacers, whatever you want to call them. They clip in. Then you have O-rings and you push them directly into the rail. Another thing to note is when you're running 4 secondary injectors, you have to splice into the harness to split the secondary injectors, which I've already done. Also, another reason I did it was because I would have to replace the connectors for the 1050Xs. Injector Dynamics actually has their own plugs, so they come with the injectors, and it really makes a nice clean install. So I have both secondaries and the primaries done. The CJ Motorsports fuel kit comes with the reducers for the secondaries and the primaries. I've already installed them. They have O-rings. All you do is lube them and press them in. And there's 1 on each bung. And then down in the rotor housing, there's 2 down there. Same process for all 6. One thing about this Elite manifold that I do not like, and I wish I would have known before I bought it, because I probably would not have bought it. It does not clear the stock coil packs, and I'm gonna have to relocate these. But for now, I'm gonna install everything and then just have these off to the side. So before you do anything, I would recommend putting the intake manifold on. I have already done this just because I had to put the turbocharger on and make all the lines. You can see down there, I made the coolant return and feed lines. I still haven't connected the heater hose, but the intake manifold is kind of a pain to get on and off with the stock studs and bolts, just because of the fact that the the studs, you have to pull the intake manifold so far out. I'm going to install the primary rail and the secondary rail. Pretty much can't mix up the spacers, so the primary has shorter spacers than the secondary, and just so you have a reference if you open both packages. They do come individually packaged from CJ Motorsports, so you really, as long as you open one, put it on, and then open the other and put it on, you won't have any issues. It comes very well packaged. Everything that you need is there: the spacers, the reducer bungs, the hardware, the fuel lines, everything. So the only thing that doesn't come with the kit, if you don't order them, is the injectors. And I would order, the IDs are a very nice injector, and they actually flow very well, are very consistent. So I have both fuel lines from the primary to the secondary, and then from the back of the primary to the fuel pressure regulator. Also, one comes off of here to the fuel pressure regulator, and I made another line to suit that. I just polished both those lines. You can see the difference between them. It's not like it's that big of a difference, but it makes a little bit of difference being polished. And now I'm going to install the feed line for the fuel. And all it does is it bolts to the back of the fuel rail right here. And how I ran it before was I pretty much just connected it here and kind of made it so it goes nice and even with that back heater hose line. So I'm going to tighten it like that. Now I'm going to assemble the intake manifold, bolt the fuel pressure regulator onto the bottom of the manifold, bolt the throttle body and the spacer, and pretty much get the manifold all the way together. So this issue with the vacuum port sources in the back and the FD firewall being so close to the manifold is my theory was I could, you know, put all these in and turn them, but the ports are so close to each other that you can't even do that because they end up running into each other. If they're spaced out a little bit further, I could stick them all in and then turn them and tighten them as I go. But that isn't the case. They give you 4 90-degree things to stick in there, but you can't even stick them in. So, I mean, this manifold is kind of becoming more and more of a headache. I don't really think I'd recommend getting it. I think, you know, the stock one, it doesn't look that nice. You can do some things to clean it up. Mine was all the EGR was deleted, all the stuff was blocked off, and all those plates kind of look like garbage. But this thing, at least my stock manifold had vacuum sources that I could tap into. This one, almost, I'm gonna have to figure something out right here. I might have to try to use a straight for the map sensor. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I also have this map sensor right here for the AM boost controller, but I just don't like that I have this issue with these ports being so close that you can't even stick the 90-degree you know, fittings that they provide in with it. So I threw the manifold up here really quick just to show you, but another thing this manifold didn't do very well is getting the dimensions correct. I mean, you can see that right there. Let's see. That little thing right there doesn't go in. It goes in if you cut it off, but why would I want to cut it off when I bought this intake manifold? So what I'm going to do is pretty much grind the manifold down until that fits in there. So I just got back from the store, got some nipples, one for the map sensor and one for the top of the oil fill cap vent. So I should be able to use those since the 90s, none of those 90s would work. So I don't know why they didn't provide straights with it, but gonna put those in, grind down that little part of the manifold right here so I could put the throttle cable in, and then I should be able to put everything on. These are the O-rings. They give you 4 O-rings for the upper to lower intake manifold. Instead of a gasket, it has O-rings. And then once I put those on, I could pretty much put the manifold on, bolt it on, and I need to run the feed in the return line. I'm going to connect those to the, for the fuel, I'm going to connect those to the fuel hard lines, and then everything should be, the whole fuel system should be ready to go. Issues with this manifold just keep multiplying. So this is an 11mm socket, and they're too close to even put a socket on them. Why? Why? So after a little bit of finessing, I got both the barbs on. Pull this line off and grind that down until it fits. Okay, so the grommet on the throttle cable is 10.45 millimeters. And this little slot right here is 9.25. No wonder why it doesn't fit. So after a whole lot of grinding, I have the throttle cable actually fitting in the little throttle cable slot with the feed and the return ran. And now I just need to put the intake manifold on. It's actually pretty disappointing to have to cover this nice fuel system up from CJ Motorsports. And I'm extremely excited that it came out so well. You know, the black anodizing, the fuel system itself looks very nice and detailed. This kit also comes with a bunch of different options. So you can do 2 secondary injector rail, a fuel pulse damper. You know, there's quite a few options that you can choose. I did the rail without the fuel pulse damper, and you know, the 4 secondary injectors instead of the 2, because I was going with this manifold. Even though I don't like this manifold, the thing about it is I already have it, so I'm going to use it until I find a better solution. The fuel system, if I do get a new intake manifold, this fuel system I'll keep. So I would not recommend getting this Elite manifold. The issues keep compounding and compounding. The new issue is the throttle cable is adjusted all the way forward, and as you can see, the throttle body is nowhere near being closed. It's like halfway open because the throttle cable bracket is in the wrong position. So, you know, just another issue. I don't know what I'm gonna do throttle cable wise. So the fuel system is all installed and came out very nice. I do like this fuel system. One thing about the fuel system is that it is very well designed. I didn't have to modify anything if I didn't want to. I didn't need to do the hard lines, but I just wanted to do it to match the color scheme that I have going on. And that's the only real reason I did my own fuel line. So for the fuel system, I give it a thumbs up. It is well designed. It flows very nicely. All the parts that you need are included. It works with this manifold, stock manifolds. There's grommets that go in the manifold and in the rotor housings. Everything fits very nicely. So I give it a thumbs up. I would use it again. I'd buy it again. I mean, you know, if you need a fuel system like this, you can look in the description. The link is there. It's CJ Motorsport. But for the intake manifold, the Elite manifold, I would give it 2 thumbs down. Just because there's so many issues with it. The issues with the ports on the back for vacuum lines don't work with the provided hardware. The manifold actually has to be modified to fit the throttle cable. The throttle cable itself doesn't work anymore because it's incorrectly designed, so the throttle body is held open. The intake manifold positions the elbow in that spacer that you have to buy because of this intake manifold, so you can't use the strut tower bar anymore. Just issues upon issues. The coils, you can't use the coils anymore underneath the manifold because they interfere with the manifold, and if you did, they would end up cracking the coils. This manifold is the worst manifold for this car. It may flow better, it may look nicer than the stock one. I wish I kept the stock one. Another thing with the manifold is that it is heavy. It's not a light manifold. The stock one weighs less. If, in my opinion, keep the stock manifold, or you know, go with a different manifold than the Elite manifold. I just, you know, there's so many issues that I have with this manifold, but since I've already purchased it and have so much money and time into it with the polishing and the anodizing and, you know, getting it here, I don't want to have this car sitting around. So I'll have to figure out something to do with the throttle cable bracket. I've already kind of figured out what I need to do with the vacuum ports. I have 2 90s and 2 straights. The straights kind of almost interfere with the firewall because the firewall is so close to the back of the manifold. You know, I'm glad that this thing is, you know, all the charge piping and everything is done. So that's the end of this video. I am super excited that I got the fuel system all buttoned up on the FD, and I wish the intake manifold was the same. I need to fix that throttle cable issue. After that, I should be able to get it running. I was hoping to get it running in this video, but unfortunately I couldn't. If you need a fuel system like that, hit up CJ Motorsports. Links in the description. Also in the description is as much of the stuff that I use in this video as I possibly could think of or remember. You know, so like the fuel lines, the fuel fittings, you know, I use a lot. So I'm gonna have to dig deep, try to remember, and like titanium bolts and stuff like that. So if you like the FD videos, make sure to like this video. Also, if you like my other videos, like the VR4 video and the F350 videos, the frame and the parts are coming, should be here this week. So hopefully the truck will be back together soon. And, you know, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to click the bell next to the subscribe button. Gets you notifications on all these videos that I'm doing. I'm trying to do more frequent videos, better quality videos. You know, it's hard to, you know, get better quality videos unlike vlog videos when you're one person. So hopefully, you know, you like this video. Make sure to subscribe and click the bell and comment, like the video, all that good stuff. See you guys next time. I wanna be